Hey everybody, this is my April of 25 booktube. Currently, my cat is being really super needy, and so I'm gonna have to evict him, otherwise you're gonna hear him purr. Now, so that way I may record. So this month certainly had more quality than quantity. I wasn't really trying to read that much this month. I was really focused on locking in my writing. So the first book I read this month was called Mechanize, My Hand to War. The action takes place in 2060 rural Appalachia. That's my accent coming out. In this book, there's a political extremist group that is opposed to robots taking all the jobs. And so what this group does is they impress child soldiers to fight the authorities. There's not much more to the plot that I can report besides the narrative of the two androids in the book. Something that, being from rural Appalachia that annoys me is that writers use rural Appalachia as a setting, mistakenly believing that the poverty in the region alone will make their narrative more relevant or compelling. You can't blame them. You can't blame them. There was nothing authentic or even interesting, new, or unique about the use of poverty Appalachia in this novel. Writ large, not much happens. Even the revelations are milquetoast. The dialogue is often expository, and the plot is more predictable than the numbers on the calendar. Save yourself the time. Unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say, probably best to skip this one. 2 out of 5 stars. Only Good Indians. If you've ever wanted to read a Native American horror story involving a deer woman, which I have, this is the story for you. Whether or not you're going to enjoy this novel is entirely dependent on whether or not that's the story you want to read. The writing style is clear, concise, crisp. The pacing, the storytelling, the plot are all good. I loved it because I've always wanted to read such a story. 3 out of 5 stars. The City in Glass. I'm not sure exactly what attracted me to this book, but I wanted to read it. It's about a demon who lives in and loves a city, Azrael, which gets destroyed by a group of angels, the city does. The demon curses one of the angels, and a piece of the demon lives in the angel. So the other angels won't allow the angel to return back to wherever the angels live, while the angel has a piece of the demon inside. The narrative isn't as linear as that description makes it sound. This book is very different from most of the books that you've read in a way that's superbly refreshing. And yes, I just used the word superbly. There are flashbacks, but you don't necessarily feel like you're going back in time. Or it's more like the plot can be seen in the shards of a broken mirror. The prose is opaque and elegant. Publishers Weekly gave it a starred review and compared it to the best of Italo Calvino and Ursula Le Guin. I mention that because when someone is compared to such established literary figures, the concern is that they're an ersatz substitute. I often see that happen. I mean, we all see that happen, right? But that's not the case with Nghi. If you like fantasy, romantasy, which this isn't romantasy, stories about angels and demons or lyrical prose, I'd recommend this title for you. I'm very glad I read it. 2.5 out of 5 stars. Demon Copperhead. The constant remaking of stories that have already been told irks me. Sure, there's built-in brand recognition, which can make people feel more comfortable engaging with the work. Totally fine. But at a certain point, society needs to do new things. So much of art is a reference to something else that it worries me as a writer that the opportunities to successfully do something new are more limited than might be healthy for an ecosystem of free thought to flourish. Having said that, Demon Copperhead, which is based on Charles Dickens' David Copperfield, is a success. There are no two ways about it. This book is great. The action follows the child, Demon Copperhead, as he grows up in rural Virginia in the Appalachian Mountains before the opioid crisis. Unlike most writers who use rural Appalachia as a device, Barbara Kingsolver actually gets it right so well. This is one of the best dramatized descriptions of rural poverty I have seen ever. And I was extremely skeptical that I would even like this book at all. The story also touches on LGBT themes, life on a farm, history's impact on contemporary life, addiction, love, family, and making it in this world, all to great success. If you're interested in classic literature, addiction narratives, rural poverties, or Americana, I highly recommend this book. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Flowers for Algernon. Now, it's not possible to have read every book. I'm aware most people read this story in high school. Despite my scoring a 5 out of 5 on my AP Lit exam, take that, guidance counselor who was incredibly distraught. She had to administer an exam to a single person. Flowers for Algernon just wasn't on my radar. I also spent the 11th grade year abroad. So in terms of what an author can do to typify a character through language, Flowers for Algernon is an eye-opening story, not only in how the character perceives himself through language, but how his relationships with others develop as a result of his intellectual development. It's kind of a niche case to read this short novella. I felt like it was short even for a novella. Unless the above paragraph really speaks to you, this might be a book like The Giver, better left to high school English class. 2.5 out of 5 stars. Seveneves. Seveneves. Oh, Seveneves. That makes much more sense. Now, Neal Stephenson is such a respected sci-fi writer. I was excited to finally read one of his books. I had heard Mary Robinette Kowal gush about this book's merit at length. She is, coincidentally, one of the narrators of the audio book. In this book, humanity is going to die in a disaster of the don't look up variety. Except the characters in this novel do look up, realize they have no chance, and conspire to work together to save humanity. Spoilers. It's so hard to care about these characters when there are so many viewpoints, and there are so many in this book. If I say there are 20, I might sound like I'm exaggerating, but I'm not really exaggerating by much. The problem with so many viewpoint characters always is that authors who use so many of them tend to be more concerned about getting characters through events rather than developing relationships among all the people. The latter bit is what makes stories really good. So I kept reading this book because of the high praise it received, but I didn't like it. It was a slog. I wanted to see where it was going. Spoilers, everybody dies about 70% of the way through. There are only 7 women left alive who have made an impossible escape from Earth, then landed their space station, again, impossibly, on an asteroid. If you think that sounds exciting, it's not. The lack of character development is infuriating in an 880-page book. Then, the 7 women agree they're going to create a new species of human. Each of the women will choose certain genetic modifications. They'll see which of their 7 lineage does the best. Survival of the fittest sort of thing. Again, this happens about 70-80% of the way in. Then all of a sudden, the book jumps forward 5,000 years, switches viewpoint characters, and I marked it as DNF. I could forgive the writing being mechanical. I could also forgive the writer confusing what makes a story interesting as incorrectly being events, or maybe even the terrible expository dialogue that mars this book. If the author's goal is to tell a story about the genetically distinct offspring of 7 women, I can think of 2 better ways off the top of my head to do that, and I'm not in the business of telling people how to rewrite their stories. I just don't think it's a good approach to kill off every single character across 600 pages, only to move in a completely different direction. making the reader trudge through all of that action only to make it irrelevant to the thought experiment of creating Seveneves, violates the reader's trust. Or at least it violates mine. Plain and simple. DNF. The fifth season. This is the first book in the Broken Earth trilogy a lot of people know about. It's written by M.K. Jemison, which made her the second black person to win a Hugo, and the subsequent 2 books made her the first person to ever win 3 consecutive Hugos in a row. This book seriously lives up to the hype. The story follows a woman as she trains to use her orogeny, which is basically earthbending, but actually a bit more interesting. The world building is powerful without being overwhelming. The descriptions are astounding. The plot twist is so amazing. If you haven't already, do yourself the favor of reading the 5th season. This book is already very well known, so the only thing I can say is that it's a 5 out of 5 stars. Wow. The Jaguar Mask. Felipe is a Jaguar who can disguise himself as a human by wearing masks. When the Guatemalan government murders a high-ranking foreign official who works at an NGO in Guatemala, Felipe gets wrapped up in exposing the cover-up. The reason why is because an innocent woman also gets wrapped up in the murder, and Felipe wants to help her daughter, Cristina Ramos, to try to solve the case. It turns out they both have secrets. As a work of magical realism and fantasy, this novel is excellent. The writing can't be described as anything other than a little clunky, the plot a little bit contrived, not to mention at times predictable. But if you like stories about government intrigue, magical realism, and third world revolutions reminiscent of Joseph Conrad's Nostromo, this is the book for you. 2.5 out of 5 stars. The Yiddish Policemen's Union. What if, instead of settling in Israel, European Jews settled in Alaska? This was an actual proposal in the US in 1938 that ultimately did not pan out. It's also the starting point of the Yiddish Policemen's Union, which won the Hugo in 2008. The story takes place in Sitka, Alaska, in an alternative history where the European Jews settled parts of the territory. The narrative follows Meyer Landsman, a homicide detective, as he tries to solve a murder case that feels very traditional for the mystery genre. There are no faults with Michael Chabon's writing. I read the whole book and appreciated it, but felt I wasn't the target audience for the story. If you like sci-fi and are interested in Judaism, this book will probably really resonate with you. 2.5 out of 5 stars.